Okay.
And then we saw the example of a company in Germany that failed in the business.
So what did we learn from that?
It had a lot of functional mistakes while implementing.
Right, functional, right? So what do you know functional?
Functional are like the system requirements that IIBA categorizes into.
What is the difference between functional and non-functional requirement? Yes, functional, non-functional requirement. What's your take? Like, you talk about what do you think?
It is like the testing and the implementation for functional, and all the other secondary characters like for non-functional.
So functional requirements are specific to features. Okay, what capability you need, what capability is required, and the quality of the capability is non-functional. Okay, is it fast, slow, good, bad? Okay, functional requirements talk about the capabilities, right? What you're supposed to do, have you done it or not? Right? You're supposed to develop, patient search option. Did you create patient search or not? Right? You were supposed to save the data. Did you save the data or not? It's about the capabilities. Okay, let me share my screen. So it's about the capabilities. So when you see this picture again, okay, system did not include the functionality to deal with the deductions for income from small jobs. It did not include the functionality to deal with the deductions, right? That deduction was not there at all. Okay, account numbers were saving wrong. So these are the capabilities which was not developed, incomplete, incorrect, right? Those are the capabilities which are missing. Then you have quality of service is about how good feature is there. Okay, functional requirement is there, but it is not satisfactory. Okay, it is slow or fast. We'll talk about quality of service today. Okay. Okay, we were here on this slide. Okay, non-functional or quality of service requirement. Okay, so here there are three types of non-functional requirement. Three main types. You have product requirements, one, organizational requirements, two, and external requirements. So something which is related to the product, okay, for which you are building the capabilities, very specific to the product. Organizational, okay, beyond product, but still within your company's, okay, boundaries. And external is something which is beyond your control, okay, which goes beyond, I shouldn't say beyond the control, but something which, you know, it goes beyond your office, your company. So if you talk about product specific, you have usability requirements. Okay, user, how easy it is to use. Okay, so these first thing that I'm going to mention, these are about product specific, right? Related to the product that you have. Okay, usability requirement, how easy it is to use your product. Okay, then you have efficiency requirements. Efficiency is about space and performance. Okay, how much space does the product take? Okay, how good is the performance, right? Is it slow, is it fast, right? How much time? Again, products should take less number of space, especially when you talk about mobile apps, right? We have limited space on our phones, right? So if it takes a lot of space, right, it doesn't serve the purpose. Okay, smaller the space it takes, better it is. Okay, performance in terms of speed, right? Then third one, so you have usability, efficiency, reliability. How do you define reliability? What's your take on that? How do you define reliability?
How much you can trust the, yeah, trust, reliable is trust.
Reliability is, yes, if you are running that product, if you're running uh, the the software, right, it should not fail. Correct? Trust means what? It will not fail, right? We don't test Zoom call before call, right? We say, okay, meeting is at 10:30, we meet at 10:30. We don't join 15 minutes before and start testing everything because we trust. Zoom is reliable, internet is reliable, so you will join at the time, right? We don't. So it is about how less it fails. Okay, less it fails, more reliable it is. Okay, so your product should work fine longer. Correct. Then what is the last one? Portability. What is portability? When you
Like
move,
it's easy to move or carry or easy to use.
easy to use, right? So when you develop a software, right, your software will not be just used, right? It could be used on different machines. Some could be on Windows 10, some could be on Windows 7 also, right? So when you are moving, some could be, Intel will have Intel uh, um, RAM, chips. Some will have some other companies' chips, right? So your software has to work without any problem on all kinds of machine, right? That's called portability. Without worrying too much about your system, you are working on, you're developing and your system works on multiple applications, right? So this is what we call it as portability. Okay, easy to install without any additional thing. So these are all specific to your product. Okay, then the second type is organization. In organization, we talk about delivery requirement. Okay, when you deliver your product to your customer, what is that they expect? What goes along with delivery? Okay, implementation, how easy it is to implement. Okay, we have developed it, but can it be implemented on the customer side? Okay, standards. Okay, now this is again important because every company, every location has their own standard, right? In US, it could be inches and pounds. In India, it could be kilogram and say centimeter. Okay, language settings, right? Japanese client would want in Japanese language. So your standards will vary from your client to client, your same client location to location. Are you able to meet those standards? Now see, these are not very specific to your features, right? You have developed great product, okay? But instead of measuring centimeter, you're measuring inches, right? So it becomes a non-functional. Your client might reject just because you're using a different metric which they don't use generally. Actually, it happened, few years back. I think about 15, 20 years back. It could be very well 20 years back. There was a plane crash in Delhi, and this plane crash was because of so a goods plane hit a passenger plane. Okay, and the goods plane was old Russian plane which had a different metric. Okay, and that guy could not convert metric into feet or something like that, and it actually hit a passenger plane around 10,000 feet high in the sky. So it is a big problem. Okay, so you have to follow the standard, and every company, every region has its own standard. So it is not because of your product is fine. Okay, just that you are not meeting the standard. So it is a non-functional requirement, isn't it? So product related, function related, and external. External is interoperability. Okay, portability is fine. Okay, it's very specific product. Interoperability is when you are moving from one operating system to another operating system. Okay, when you have to talk between two different softwares. Okay, you already have one software and this other software has to talk. That's called interop. Okay, they have to talk. These two systems needs to talk. Okay, so it is beyond your org or product because other systems should also support. Okay, your product should also support and the other product should also support, right? So that's why it's called external, something which is beyond your org or your product. Okay, ethical requirements. Okay, it should not perform anything which is unethical, right? Maybe taking personal data. Okay, and it could be not unknowingly also, right? So okay, so maybe it may not be illegal to save personal data in a country, but it is definitely unethical to save the data and take the data which is not required. Okay, then legislative requirements. So legislative requirements are legal requirements, right? It could again be safety specific and privacy specific. Okay, so these are the legislative specific requirements you have to meet, isn't it? If you do not meet, and you start using your product, sooner or later you will be fined. So these are different types of requirements that we have to keep in mind when you are developing a software. Your software should not break any legal requirements. It should not, perform anything which is not unethical stuff. Okay, it should talk to the required system which it needs to talk to, right? So these are all examples of non-functional requirement. I'll take pause for 2 minutes. I want you to read these and let me know if it is all good. Try to recollect what I have said, and if you are not able to recollect, ask me, I will repeat it.
Can you just give the difference between standard requirements and privacy requirements?
So the standard is about meeting the internal. Now, if you talk about this training, okay, maybe speaking in same language which you understand. Okay, maybe English is one comment. Could be, let's assume that all three of us know French. We could do in French also, right? So standard is something that all three of us understands. Okay, so which is within us, right? Privacy requirements could be something which goes beyond. Okay, so maybe Zoom is storing whatever we are talking, and it is making it public on some website without our approval or without telling us. So that is a privacy requirement, right? They cannot share our conversation without our approval, isn't it?
In interview point of view, will they ask anything like what is the product requirements?
Of course, they'll ask you.
Okay.
Important. This is core, as I told you, right? This is core thing. Requirements is the core work. Right? All good? Shall we move ahead?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So these are some ways to measure. How do you measure it? Okay. How do you know that it's not meeting a particular requirement? Okay. So so you have to look at this. So when I say the system is slow, right? What does that mean? Speed. So speed you can measure in terms of number of transactions processed per second. Number of transactions processed per second. Okay. User per event response time, right? So when you perform some transaction, let's say you click a button, how much time does it take to give you the response that yes, your action has been recorded or has been saved? Okay. Screen refresh time. When you say next, how much time does it take to refresh your screen? Okay. So these are some of the ways you can measure the speed. Okay. I say, can you see my screen? You say no, 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 no. Right? Maybe if it's a second or two, it's fine. But if you're not able to see my screen for a minute, right, it's a problem, isn't it? That's what we are saying. Okay, screen refresh time. Size in terms of bytes, kilobyte, megabyte, gigabyte, right, GBs and things like that. And also number of RAM chips. Okay. Then ease of use. We say that this product is easy to use, right? How do you define easy to use? Training time. How much time do you need to train yourself to use all the features? Of course, a product which you take long time to learn is difficult to use, right? And when you can do it in less time, it is easy to use. Number of help frames. How many times you click on help? How much help is there, right? So these are nothing but they'll define how easy the product is to use. Reliability, correct? This is what we discussed. Reliability is can be defined as mean time to failure. On average, okay, what is the time between two failures? Okay, so if I say the mean time to failure is 1 month, that means product fails at least once on average. Okay, it could be no failure 1 month and two failures the next month, possible. On average, it takes no, it fails once in a month, right? Probability of unavailability, right? When you log into your computer to connect to internet, what is the probability that internet is not there? So on average, let's say, okay, 1% of time, internet is not there in a year, right? So if you multiply 24 hours into 365 days, that is the number of hours. And let's say, 100 hours is not available, internet is not available totally. So unavailability is 4% or 1% in that case, right? 1% is your probability of unavailability. Okay. Rate of failure occurrence. Okay. So similar to mean time failure here, generally, how often? Okay. So see, mean time talks about time in terms of days, hours, minutes, or seconds. Here you talk about number of failures. Okay. And then you have availability, which is same as probability of unavailability, right? So 100 minus unavailability will give you the percentage of availability, right? Robust. Reliability, see, reliability is product not failing, right? We are talking in terms of product not failing, okay? Robustness is, okay, product will fail, but how soon product is back online? Okay, products will get damaged, right? Things will get uh, uh, we cannot have product, right? Sometimes laptops might crash, right? But how soon can you recover from crash? What is the loss that happens when you get crash, right? So time to restart after failure, how much time does it take to restart when there is a failure? Okay, percentage of events causing failure. Okay, let's say you have 100 features. Which features generally crash? Okay, then probability of data corruption and failure, right? Okay, it failed, but is the data corrupted? Does data get corrupted? Portability, right? We discussed portability. Percentage of target dependent statements. How many systems actually are there, okay, on which you expect your solution to be installed, right? And it's like when it's like the statements, we're talking about in terms of different requirements, okay? Different types of, okay, different types of requirement. Okay, see, if all three of our laptop have same configuration, it becomes one statement, right? If we have different, maybe RAM is different or anything is different, then it becomes different statement. Okay, and of course number, it's just the how much is your, how many systems are different. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, now moving to a different topic. Can you read what is this?
Why prioritization?
So what do you get from this? What do you understand? Okay, so I'll give you time to read through this, read the text, and then we'll talk about it. Read, when I say read, please read.
I thought you just wanted us to read it in
Yes, read and tell us. No, 5 lines, you're quite, at least I should know that you have read it, you have not read it.
No,
If you have read
I
it,
understood that which requirements need to be prioritized first, and
correct,
then you could make a checklist.
correct. So here, see, when you start developing applications, there will be multiple requirements, right? I want to learn this, let's say I'm training itself. I want to learn this, I want to learn that, right? But we have limited resource, limited time, right? And same thing happens with your software as well, right? Because companies will have hundreds of problems, right? But if you start developing everything, the development will go on forever, right? So development will go on forever. So the product will never be in use, correct? So what we need to do is we need to understand the important things which we need to deliver, right? Now see, every company wants to have a solution, best solution at faster pace, right? So between time and the quantity, right? Less time means less quantity. More time means more quantity, right? More quantity means more time, right? So you need to prioritize things which are important from today's perspective, correct? And then you will implement. So even though you might have 20 requirements, but let's say we out of 20 we identified only 5 which are important. So you develop and deliver those 5. Yes, if more requirements are needed, we'll do it in next project, right? The next project again, prioritization happens. So when you do the requirements analysis, you will end up getting a lot more requirements, but you cannot implement all the requirements. So you'll have to prioritize those requirements. Okay. And which are non-prioritized, which are not that important, can be delivered later, right? So how do we prioritize? There are different techniques, okay, using which we can prioritize. First thing is called ranking method. In ranking method, you simply rank them. Okay, so you say, okay, tell me, all the 100 requirements are there in front of you. Okay, you rank them 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is important. Okay, this is very, very, very important. So rank 1, rank 2. So you rank all the 100 requirements from 1 to 100. And if you can deliver only 5, you pick top 5. Okay, most what do you call very effective. Okay, most effective, because every requirement has a number, but practically it is not possible, right? Why it is not possible? Because okay, what I might say is in number 1, you might say no, that is number 5 or number 10, right? You'll have multiple stakeholders, right? Not just one stakeholder, right? And even if it is 1, you might get confused between 1 and 2, which is, let's say, rank 5 or rank 6, or 3, 4 might come together, right? And you get confused. So you know that okay, these things are top 10, but within those top 10, you may not be able to rank them. Okay, you are confused, or your colleagues will not agree with you, right? So then in that case, we move from ranking to grouping method. It says, okay, it may be difficult to rank each individual requirement. So instead, let's create groups. Okay, so let's create, generally we end up creating 3 groups, okay, or 4 groups depending upon your business requirement and what is the process. So let's say here you have it, right? So okay, is there coming next? So in grouping, you'll say okay, these are number 1 group, okay, then number 2 group, number 3 groups, number 4 groups. Okay, so in number 1 group, okay, 50 to 60% requirements, everybody would agree, yes, these are important. But the rest 30-40% requirement, you may not agree with your colleague, right? You might feel just like what we had problem there. Here too, what you feel should be in number 1, your friend will say it is in number 2, right? So in this case, what happens? Again, problem occurs, right? So this also many times doesn't work. Then we go with bubble sort technique. Now, bubble sort technique is an extension of the first one, the ranking technique. So here you are again ranking, okay, but the ranking is not, you're not taking all the hundreds together, okay, you are taking only 2 together. You are taking 2 requirements to at a time. Bubble sort, okay, it's a sorting technique, okay, it's an algorithm which can sort numbers in increasing or decreasing order. So what happens is you take requirement 1 and 2 first. Okay, let's say you're doing from step 1, you have 100 requirements, you take 1 and 2. So now your focus is on 2, not on all 100. Okay, your focus is on 2. From these 2, whichever is most important, you keep it. And then other you drop, for temporarily you drop, for now you drop. And then you take the third one. Again, you compare the one that you have, the most important, and the third one. Whichever is important, you keep it. Again, you compare with next, so on. So of course, this is a lengthy process which will take you a lot of time, but it is easier and effective compared to ranking. So it is an extension of ranking. Okay, it is ranking only, extension of ranking technique. So okay, bubble sort technique is a special ranking technique. Now Moscow, okay, is an extension of your grouping technique. When you create group 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, we can always have debate, which goes in group 1, group 2. What Moscow technique says that okay, let's not create any group. Okay, let's create these 4 groups that you see: must have, should have, could have, and wish list. So you create 4 groups and you write a definition. Okay, of course, it's not about the only 4 groups, but you have to have a definition for each of these 4 groups. Okay, something is must have, should have the requirements. If you don't add that requirement, your client is not going to accept your product. Okay, the requirements which has to be there. Okay, otherwise client will not accept your product. That goes into must have. Important, but client says okay. Okay, I think it's there on the next slide. Okay, client says is okay, it is important for me, but I can wait. Okay, so client is ready to wait, then it should go into should have. Okay, similarly you have could have and wish list. Wish list is good to have, but yeah, it's not necessary. So when you create these 4 groups, it is different compared to the grouping technique. Is that the group that you have created has a definition along with it, isn't it? So when you have a definition and define the context, then there are very less chances that people disagree. Okay, so so when you have grouping, people can disagree, which should go in group 1, which should go in group 2. But when you have a definition, okay, that so it makes easier for people to think and put that in the group. And only must haves goes into implementation in the first round. Maybe after the first round work is done, for the second round again you'll carry out prioritization. Okay. Okay, the last one, if nothing works, okay, if none of the 4 algorithm or method works, then this is the one that we use to break the deadlock. So here, if you have 100 requirements, you are given $100. Everybody is given, of course, virtually, right? Or $100 you can say, or 100 points you can say. Everybody is given 100 points. Okay, and it says, okay, these are the 100 requirements. Now you give your points to each of those requirements. For example, if you think that all the techniques or all the requirements are equally important, for example, so you give $1 to each one of those requirements. You think that no, only one is important, rest are not important. You give all the 100 points to the one requirement only, right? So I mean, so everybody is given 100 points or $100, and they're asked to put it on the requirements based on priority that they think or the importance that they think. Okay, so everybody does that, and then end of the day, when everybody has done, then you just go and calculate the dollars that everybody has placed against each of the requirements. The requirement which has the high, yeah, so I was saying that when everybody is done, then you go and calculate the dollar value against each of the requirements. Okay, and the requirement which has the maximum dollar value becomes your number 1, second maximum number 2, so on, and the least will become your number 100, right? So this is to break the deadlock. When nothing works, you can use this. Yes.
Can you give a scenario where you will use this $100 method?
Sorry, I missed that. What do you say?
Can you give an example or a scenario where you will use this $100 method?
No, so whenever there is a deadlock, right? When all the methods fails, then you have to use this. Yes. See, you have to give the, let's say, a simple example is, let's say your family, let's say you have 10 people in a family. Of course, let's assume that you have a big family. Okay. And you are not able to plan what should you do on a weekday or weekend, or you want to plan and you have shortlisted 20 cities to go for holiday, and you all are not able to decide, okay, which city to go, right? So you can use this.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So next process is called AHP, analytic hierarchy process. Okay. This is used when, let's say, there's a big problem, right? And you're not able to understand it. Okay. So what is the best way to do it?
The $100 method.
Sorry?
The $100 method.
No. When you have a big problem, okay, then what do? Let's say I tell you tomorrow you have to cook for 50 people. Big problem. What do we do? Right? So you start breaking the bigger problem into smaller problems. So like, you want to make me for 50 people. Okay. So what all things should we make? Right? So if there's a big process, okay, let's say you have to prepare for BA interview, right? So you have to start breaking into smaller topics, isn't it? That's why we have syllabus, right? Why do we have syllabus? So that you say, okay, so this, instead of looking at BA as an entire thing, you break it down to each topic, each subtopic, and then you start preparing for each subtopic, right? Preparing for each subtopic is simpler, easier, okay? And when you combine them all together, it becomes, when you do all the topics when you cover, now you're ready for BA, okay? So if I tell you to prepare for BA, right, you might feel like, oh my God, so much to read, correct? But when you start breaking down into topics and start focusing on each topic, then it becomes easier, isn't it? So same thing, when you are asked to develop a solution as as a software product, of course, developing any software product is not easy. It's a big task, Herculean task. So what do? We start breaking it down into smaller pieces. Each feature, you focus on each feature. You focus on each feature. So AHP talks about, okay, it has two basically, ways, okay. So see here. So the method actually describes the entire framework for making correct decisions in fields such as business, healthcare, government, and many other, right? Whatever field you choose. Stakeholders decompose their goal into smaller sub-problems, which can be easily understood and analyzed in form of hierarchy. So you're breaking into smaller hierarchy, right? So once you have broken into smaller hierarchy, see, to understand, you have to break it down into hierarchy. And then when you roll up, okay, because see, ultimately you have to talk about one solution. So then you roll up, you start putting them together, and it becomes a final product. So you can use this in the prioritization technique also. Okay, when you're not able to decide which is important, try to break it down into smaller pieces, which will give you idea, which will tell you what it is. Okay, but this is not good when you have a lot of requirements, because if you have to break down 100, probably it'll take you, it'll take days to break down into 100, isn't it? So this is good. Let's, if out of 100, let's say 2 you are not sure of. So 2 you can break it down. It talks about problems. So basically it's a problem solving technique. It's not a, we are using it for prioritization, but it is a problem solving technique. Okay, and BA is all about problem solving. Okay, different problem solving. I told you, right, these concepts you can use it in your daily life as well. Of course, we don't use, because sometimes it becomes too cumbersome to use a process in real life, but but here in corporate it makes sense, because high stake game, right? We, on the first day itself, we discussed that if you do not get the requirements correct, sooner or later your business will be out of market, isn't it? Nokia, we discussed about Nokia.
Yeah.
Right. So this is one such technique. Understood? Yes, shall we go ahead?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this is one such example. So if you have to focus on sales process, how do I improve my sales? The question is, how do I improve my sales? So your sales process can be improved using 3 different ways. One is, of course, by selling more product, right? You sell more, okay, you will get more sales. Fine. Second is about managing the inventory also better. Okay, selling more is good, but what is even more better is carrying the inventory which customer want, right? Many times we go to a store and we come out without buying. Okay, that is the worst thing that can happen for a retailer. Okay, see, first part is, how do you go to a store, right? They will do promotion, marketing, some lighting, hoarding. They do a lot of things to get customers to their store, right? They will probably give pamphlets, they'll put the lightings, just to attract you, or whatnot. So that is the best part. Okay, this is like selling more, but you go and you don't like, or you don't find the product of your choice. That is the worst thing, isn't it? So that falls under managing inventory. How do you, as a retailer, manage the inventory for which there is a buyer? And third option is focusing on finance, control finance. That means invest where it is required, whether you talk about promotions, marketing, cut down on unnecessary investment, right? Reducing, cost, and improving. So it is all about the finance part. So sales, inventory, the goods, right? Sales, goods, and finance. All these 3 things can impact your sales, right? So if you have to solve a sales problem, you have to look at all these 3 things and see which one has more scope for improvement. If a company has a great sales process, then if you try to improve the sales process, it's not going to work, right? So look at all these three, okay? So again, managing inventory, what? So we are breaking down into delivering. So when you deliver a product, okay, to the store, when you are accepting a delivery, and you are checking the stocks level, right? So these are the three areas, okay? So you're breaking down one sales system, okay, or sales problem into three sub problems, and those three sub problems are broken down into three sub problems. Now you're looking at 9 problems, right? Of course, you converted one problem into 9 problems, not efficient, but it is easier to focus at on 9 problems than focusing on one big problem. So that's why it's not good when you have a lot of requirements, because you cannot keep breaking all the requirements, you're unnecessarily wasting time. So this is good when you have few requirements to check. Okay, another important technique that you should know as a BA is called 5 whys. Okay, so when you look at a problem, to understand the problem better, okay, and see, when I say 5 whys, could be 4 or 6, okay, it doesn't have to be exactly 5, but based on experience, what people found is that 5 times asking why actually gives you the problem. So here we're talking about the root cause. Why did a problem occur? Okay, now when you don't address the root cause of the problem and you fix the problem, of course, you fix the problem has occurred, so you fix it. But after fixing, again, it can occur, isn't it? So if you find the root cause, the exact cause why the problem has occurred, and if you fix it, then the problem will never occur again. So how do we know what is the root cause, right? So what people have seen is that if you're asking question why, okay, you asking 5 questions 5 times. Why? Okay, so this happened because of this. So why this happened? This happened because of this. So why that happened, right? So when you ask 5 times, you will actually reach the root cause, right? So as I said, right, it does not need to be 5. It can be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 also, if we have not gone down to the root cause. But most of the time, 80% of the time, asking 5 times why will be good enough. So this is an example. Okay, first we'll talk about the right side example. Okay, general example. Then we'll talk about the software example. So can one of you read the right side one, and then we'll talk about the left side one. Oh, sorry.
Problem statement: the vehicle will not start. Why? The battery is dead. Why 2? The alternator is not functioning. Why 3rd? The alternator belt has broken. Why 4th? The alternator belt was well beyond its useful service life and not replaced. Why 5? The vehicle was not maintained according to the recommended service schedule.
Right. So the main problem is you are not able to start your car, right? So battery is dead. Why are you not able to start the car? Battery is dead. So if you stop here, okay, if you don't ask further why, so you'll go and you will charge the battery. Then what happens? That's not the root cause. So if you charge the battery, you today probably you'll drive, and when you come back in the evening, next day again your car will not start. This says get down to the root cause so that your problem should not occur again. So battery is dead. You're asking why the battery got dead. It was working fine till yesterday. What happened today? Alternator is not functioning. Why is the alternator not functioning? Alternator belt has broken. Why did the belt break? Belt broke because it was well beyond its useful service life. Why did I not know before? Why did it, was so? Because you did not maintain the vehicle properly, right? So, you can change the alternator belt, then you will not have this problem, but you might end up having some other problem. Something else might break. So you have to, have a regular service. Okay, so the root cause is having regular service. Not having regular service can give you problem like this. Okay, so this is what we call as 5 whys. Now can we read the other one, left side one?
A new release disabled a feature for customers. Why? Because a particular server failed. Why did the server fail? Because an obscure subsystem was used in the wrong way. Why was it used in the wrong way? The engineer who used it didn't know how to use it properly. Why didn't he know? Because he was never trained. Why wasn't he trained? Because his manager doesn't believe in training new engineers. Because he and his team are too busy.
Right? So what do you understand from this?
Yeah, the reasoning for why did the server fail?
Right? So, let's say a new release was done, right? Company is already using a product, a new version upgrade happened. Okay, so upgrade happened and system didn't stop. System didn't work. Okay, after upgrade, system did not go up. So then you looked at it, why it happened. So they saw that one of the feature was disabled. Automatic, it was enabled before, but after upgrade, it got disabled. Okay, so why did it fail? Okay, so server failed because system was implemented in a wrong way. That particular feature was implemented in the wrong way. Why was it implemented in the wrong way? Engineer who used it didn't know how to use it properly. Okay, now the thing is, if you ignore it, the next customer again you implement it will have the same problem. So you can't ignore, you have to find out the root cause. Okay, if you fire this guy, okay, this guy is doing wrong, the next guy will also end up doing same thing. Okay, so that's also not the solution. Solution is that, okay, he didn't know. Why didn't he know? Because he was never trained. Why was he not trained? Because his manager doesn't think that training is important. So the problem is his manager. Manager should be trained to tell him the importance of training, right? So that's how you reach. Now if manager's mindset is changed, then problem like this will never ever occur. Yes, agreed. So these are examples of 5 whys. Asking repeatedly same question 5 times, okay, you will get your answer. Okay, now this is another important topic. We are good for next 10-15 minutes, all of you, both of you?
Yeah, sir.
Okay, then let's focus on this. So how do you write the requirement? Okay, requirements, what we discussed before, we have to write the requirements. Okay, we are going closer to writing the requirements. So the one that is written here in black, okay, it is an example of bad way of writing the requirement. So let me read it. Product SKUs entered by the customer will be validated against SKU master list. So product SKU, some number you enter as a user, and that number is validated in the master list, if possible, and results will be presented in the tabular format to the user. Okay, this is a bad way of writing the requirement. Okay, why bad way of writing the requirement? Okay, first of all, product SKUs entered by the customer will be validated. So what do you mean validated? Okay, when it is validated and when it is not validated, is there a meaning of validation, right? It could say that if there is a match in the list, correct, that is validation, isn't it? You have to define it, right? What you assume validation mean and what I assume validation mean can be different. So in order that all of us mean the same thing, we have to define, expand validation. Okay. Then what it says is will be. Generally, it's a very strong word not to use. Shall is preferred. Okay. You see the content on the white. Must, will generally is not considered. Okay. So we say shall. Okay. So shall be. Okay. But okay, that is a small problem, not a big problem. Okay. Biggest problem is if possible. Okay, against SQ master, if possible. What do you mean by if possible? I give you a task and I tell you, if possible, do this. You say, okay, it's not possible, let me not do it, isn't it? If I tell you, if possible, only do it, that means it's not important, right? So what do you mean by impossible? What if it is not possible? What should you do, right? So this is, again, this is like, you don't know what to be done. That's what the message that you get. If possible, do this. What? So that means if it is not possible, I will not do it. So you don't want me to do it, in fact, right? And the last thing which you can see is that result will be presented in the tabular format. And this is what I was talking about yesterday, that we should not force the user to tell us the way it should be represented. The output should be in our format. As a technical person, should know whether tabular format is better or graph is better, until unless they want in tabular format only for some reason. I want tabular format only. So whatever, if they have a valid reason, then of course you will. That's what implementation requires. It's a part of implementation requirement. Okay. So generally, implementation requirement we should not accept. Okay, you don't want them to dictate to you what the output should be. What capability they need, I will give it to you, right? In the sense, you should not tell me, okay, you can tell me what topics you want me to cover, but you cannot tell me which platform to use, isn't it? We've been using Zoom, but if we have a valid reason, Zoom doesn't work on my laptop for some reason, Zoom and one application doesn't work together, it doesn't work. That's a valid reason, right? But just because you want this thing, that you don't let customer dictate the outcome. Until yesterday, I gave an example of database. Okay, it should be Oracle database only. Why? Okay, we have a 100-member team. That's a valid reason. Then you will see put it as a Oracle database. But just because customer says Oracle, if SQL has a better probabilities and better features, you should use SQL, right? So that's an example. So whatever I said, same thing is written here. Usage of will instead of shall. Will be validated. Validated means what? How will you validate it? Who will validate it? The meaning of it should be written. If possible. Results, yeah. What do you mean by result? Result should be displayed. Okay, fine. But what do you mean by result? You're talking about just the name, you're talking about the address, you're talking about what, right? So what is the result? And tabular format, I said, do not impose the solution, right? And no unique identifier. Every requirement should have a unique ID. Generally, we write business requirement with B1, B2, okay? User requirement with U1, U2, system requirement with S1, S2, so that okay, it is a system requirement 1, system requirement 2. If you have to refer to this requirement, I don't know the roll number. I mean, the reason we have roll number is so that you can uniquely identify who the person is, isn't it? So every requirement should have a unique number. So we will try to rewrite this. We call it as FR1, functional requirement 1. ABC system shall validate product SKUs entered by the user against the SKU master list. So the user is entering into the system and you are comparing it against the master list. Fine. If the SKU entered can be located, this is the validation. If the SKU is located in the master list, then system shall communicate to the user that product was found. Stop. Prompt. To display the message product found. That's the outcome. That's what you want. And if it is not found, then you will say add this to the basket, right? I mean, it's not there, so add it. Okay. So the system shall communicate to the customer that the product was not found. Simple as, little lengthy, but it is more clear, easy to understand. Okay, incomplete, inconsistent, all those things are avoided. Okay, I'll give you time to read and let me know what you think.
Yeah, okay, Saurabh.
Okay,
Yeah. True.
great. So what we say is that the requirement has to be necessary. Only if it is important, it should be there. If it is not important, it should not be there. Right? So your requirements has to be necessary, right? If possible, that means not required. Verifiable. Okay, requirement should be verifiable, means you should be able to verify whether the requirement has been developed or not. I tell you to do something, right? And there's no way to check whether you have done it or not. Then it's as good as you're not doing it. Correct. If I can't verify whether you have done it or not, then it is as good as saying don't do it. So your requirement has to be verifiable, attainable, possible. Attainable means it has to be possible. Something which I tell you to do which is not possible. Right? Project report in one night. Not possible. Right? So again, you should not talk about unattainable or impossible types of requirement. Okay, so necessary, verifiable, and attainable, and unambiguous. It should give a clear, simple meaning when you read a statement. Okay, you should not get confused by reading the requirement. It should give you one specific meaning. So necessary, verifiable, attainable, and ambiguous. Then your requirement has to be complete. Okay, not half requirement. Half requirement, again, problem like the account number. Okay, they'll say account number, if it is less than 10, you add zeros, but you don't tell where to add the zero, at the beginning or at the end. Right, they'll add at the beginning because you assume that okay, numbers cannot be added at the end, should be added in the beginning, but you have not specifically told. Right, you should ask the question. So requirement is incomplete. Okay, so if meeting ends, so we'll stop, but hopefully we'll be able to finish it before the meeting ends. Consistent. The requirement has to be consistent. You cannot say in the first place that it should be black in color, then you say it should be gray in color, then somewhere else you say pink in color, right? So this is called inconsistent. Whatever you say, it has to be same throughout the documentation. Consistent. Traceable. What is traceable? I did this on the first or second day itself. What is traceable? So when you talk about system requirement, you should be able to trace it back to the business requirement. System requirement to user requirement to the business requirement, it should be traceable. You should be able to trace them. Okay, it should be traceable from forward traceable also. If I tell you, okay, business requirement is this, what are the system requirements you're developing to support the business requirement? You should be able to go from any requirement to any type of requirement, business to system to user, you should be able to move. If there is no linkage between these, like let's say a business requirement does not have a specific user requirement, that means you have not developed it, it's incomplete. If you have added extra requirement in the user requirement which is not linked to the business, you're doing things which is unnecessary. So the requirement has to be traceable. And you should also know who told the requirement. Tomorrow something question comes on the requirement, you should do trace back who said it, when it was said, right? So that's why it should be traceable. And finally, concise. You have to give the information, right? You cannot write in short form. You have to give the information fully, but it has to be concise. You cannot keep on adding some extra text which will only confuse the user, right? So it's a complete, consistent, traceable, and concise. Then we have about the structure, the way you develop the requirements, design free. Okay, you should not talk about the design, tabular format, no, right? Let the design team talk about it. The team that is going to develop talk about what the design should be there. So your requirement should not talk about design unless until if there is a specific requirement, Standard constructs, use standard construct in terms of English, in terms of mathematics, okay? Like example of using shall instead of will, okay? So again, communication is important here. Always have a unique ID, okay? ID associated with the requirements, and in everywhere else people will refer using that. So if somebody has to refer to this requirement document, they'll say refer FR1, functional requirement 1, refer FR1, right? That's why unique ID is important. And finally, has to be prioritized. Is it must have, should have, could have, right? Is it number 1, number 2, number 3, right? Whatever it, mostly people choose grouping. Okay, very rarely you will see the individual ranking, but yes, you can choose ranking or grouping. That has to mention that, so that when somebody reads it, they know whether they have to give importance to this requirement or not. They still sort of do this thing. Okay, can you do this work? I say, okay, I'll do it. They'll say, okay, you take your time. You can deliver it whenever you want to deliver. I will never deliver, right? But usually I need it by 1 week, or I need it by tomorrow. I'll say, sorry, not possible, right? Again, attainable. I need it by next week. Okay, it looks reasonable. It's okay, we'll promise and we'll deliver it by next week. So priority has to be discussed. If you know the priority that is high, but you fail to convey to me the priority, okay? If you fail to convey to me the priority, then I will do it at my own pace, right? And this is what happens mostly. People will know the importance. They want everything to be done in, soon as possible. Other person is not able to understand your priority, right? So that's why you have to tell them why it is required, when it is required, so that it can be delivered on time. Okay, these are some of the questions that are generally asked. Okay, how questions, where questions, when questions. So we'll end it here today. We'll talk about these questions and then we'll take some examples. For next 2 days, we'll do some examples. You'll have to write the requirements. Sounds good?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Saurav.
Perfect. We still have 5 minutes. Any questions you have before we end up?
No, sir.
No, Saurav.
Awesome.
No, sir.
So what you can do for today's assignment is, I've already shared all the slides. Okay, hopefully you should have seen those links. So take this screenshot here. Okay, try to write 1-line definition for each, and how will you find it? Okay, so how do you know that your product is doing well on portability, the metric, something like this, right? Try to create this kind of table for all the requirements, at least one measure. Okay, 1-line definition and 1 line of measure. So you talk about reliability, mean time to failure, something like that. You try to do it for all the requirements that we have here. And did you get the videos, yesterday's videos?
Yes, Ram shared it.
Yeah.
Yes, great. So, yeah. I'll try to do it today's videos also before I go to bed. So you should have it here by your evening. Okay, so if there are no questions, we'll end it here for today.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Take care. Good night.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.